Welcome to Pastor's Corner. If you have not joined us previously, I am Pastor Kelly Milne of the Bridgewater New Jerusalem Church, and I have with me my cohort partner in lots of things, Reverend Dr. Donna Keene, and she is the minister at the Elmwood New Church here in East Bridgewater. And if you haven't been with us before, we are looking at different topics with a little pastoral twist. And I think you might find today's topic a little bit different than what we have been doing.
Yes.
And we're calling it The Good Life. And how did this concept kind of come up?
Are you asking me?
Yes.
Okay.
I am.
Well, I had an opportunity to do some thinking, and it's always very difficult when I do thinking because I get in trouble.
You do.
But I was thinking about where I am in my life right now and how did I get here? I mean, Carl Jung was quoted as saying, anything anybody asks over the age of 40 is, what am I doing here? And I started thinking about the moments of my life when things happened that I didn't expect. Yeah. And then I started thinking about what I call messages from the universe that I chose to ignore for a long time. And so I came up with the idea of what is the good life? Everybody has a different idea of what it is. My idea of a good life used to be that I had more, more than I needed.
Sure.
I wanted to know that I had more of everything. And so I agreed to work, go to work for a paycheck to get more. And somewhere along the way, that changed. So that's how we got to this particular topic today, is what is the good life? And how do we find out what it is for each one of us? If we listen to the messages from the universe, sometimes that's going to make our lives better.
And I think the key word is listen. And, you said messages from the universe. It could be from the universe. It could be whatever your faith system is.
Yep.
It could be God. It could be Jehovah. It could be Buddha. Whatever your belief is, I think that we are constantly getting messages. Are you willing to share some of those messages that you got?
Yeah, sure. For a long time, I worked at a large corporation in personnel, writing job descriptions, doing compensation and benefits management. And I wasn't really too happy with it, but it paid the bills.
Sure.
And I originally was going to be the senior executive vice president of personnel for that corporation, first woman. And then I realized how hard I'd have to work if I wanted that, and I said, that's not going to be for me. But I was in my office one day, the senior vice president of engineering was there. I had written all the job descriptions in his department. And he had walked in with tears in his eyes, and he said, my wife has just been diagnosed with end-stage cancer. She has 3 months to live. So I started working with him, doing what today I would know as pastoral care. And my boss, the vice president of personnel, walked in and said, where is that blankety blank report I asked you for? And I said, you'll have it on your desk at 1. And he turned around and saw Mel and didn't realize he was in the room, so he immediately left. But the importance to this little vignette is my gut response was, how dare he walk in and interrupt my work? My work? Wait a minute, they don't pay me to sit with Mel. They pay me to produce the report. So at that moment in time, I thought, maybe I should get paid for doing this work. And they had sent me to a management meeting retreat where they did a lot of psychological testing. And I worked with statistics and calculators on my desk. And at the end of this meeting, this 3-day meeting, the tester said, we have to sit down and look at your tests. I said, fine. He said, according to these tests, you should be teaching Christian education. And I looked at him and said, I don't even go to church. He said, well, tests don't lie. So those are the first 2 messages that I got that I ignored. And then I was sitting around thinking, you know, maybe I should try to get paid for that kind of work. And I wasn't going to be a psychiatrist because I couldn't go to med school. And I wasn't going to be a psychologist because Dr. Skinner was all the rave, and I wasn't going to look at rats in mazes. And I wasn't going to be a sociologist because they deal with large segments of people, and I wanted to be one-on-one. So the only thing left was to become a pastoral counselor. The problem was you had to become a minister. And I thought, I don't see myself as a minister. It took me a long time to realize that if I wanted to do pastoral counseling, I was going to have to become a minister. Mm-hmm. And everybody in my family laughed. They knew that this was just not going to happen. So I found somebody I was working with as a client, and I asked him where he got all of his brilliance. And he said, from my church. I said, what church is that? And he told me it was the Swedenborgian church. And I said, oh. He said, if you want more information, you can go talk to the head of the school, which I did. And it was obvious that this was where I was going to have to go. And I went there for 3 years, and I got a certificate in their studies. And then I went to Andover Newton, and I got my master's in divinity. And then I decided I'd go right on and get my doctorate in ministry. And all of the time, I'm doing pastoral counseling. That was my goal, right? Okay. I was working in the office at the school, and this little church needed a minister. And I did what I normally did. I followed the money. And I said, oh, I can get paid for that, do my counseling at night. So that's how I got to the Elmwood new church. And it is now 34 years later. I am officially in love with being a parish minister, and especially my church, which I love. But it's all those messages all along the way. And some people would say that God was calling me in a certain direction. At that point in time, since I didn't even go to church, I used to call it messages from the universe. But the reality of life is I did not wake up when I was a child and say, I'm going to become a minister. It just didn't happen that way. So here I am at this age, doing what I love, being what I love, but it took a lot of twists and turns until I was about 38 before I got here. So my good life is no longer I want more. My good life is what I'm living right now.
Right. And that's important for all of us to understand. You know, how did I get here? Mm-hmm. What got me here?
Right.
What am I doing being here? Am I happy with what I'm doing? I mean, you've traveled from the business world into ministry, and that's had to have been a giant change.
It's a welcome change.
Yes. My story is a little bit different. I am certainly where I'm supposed to be. This is good. Where I am right now is good. I grew up in the Swedenborgian church, so I have always experienced various ministers throughout my life. I graduated college and had my psych degree. I changed my major twice, but there was a reason for that, and that was to get me to that undergrad degree in the right subject, the right purpose. Right out of college, I started working with teenagers with brain injuries at the May Institute. Very eye-opening experience, wonderful experience. I got married, and then my path turned to a little bit of teaching. And the little ones, the preschool, the kindergarten, is my age group. And so I did that for a bit. And then, as I was just about to start the fall with my own kindergarten class, my mom was diagnosed with MS. So that upset and changed my life, her life, obviously. And she and her husband had a business locally, and I decided that it was my turn to take care of her. It had been just her and I for 10 years, my first 10 years of life. So it was my turn. So I did that for, 12, 13 years, somewhere in there. And then went back to teaching for a little bit. And then she passed away. My life was split in two. Sitting in that corner of my sofa, in that deep, dark place, I know what pulled me out of it. I know who pulled me out of it. And why I listened at that moment, I don't know. But I was pulled up and out of it, went back to church, because that's something she and I also did together. And my minister started talking to me about, well, we have this program where lay people can become licensed pastors and all this thing. And I kind of said to myself, okay, this has been coming up a little bit every so often. All right, I'll try it. I'll give it a whirl. As I started into this program, people kept coming up to me and saying, well, it's about time. And I'm thinking to myself, what do you mean it's about time? I've kind of always been in those helper positions, those carer positions. I was also an EMT. So it all was leading up to this. Now, when my mom passed, I really, looking back, my life is just split in two. There is when I had her and when I didn't, physically, here. But I learned it's okay. And listening, which has always been kind of a problem for me, to listen to what God wants for me. So I've been listening now. I just about done with seminary. And this is good. Everything I have done, all of the people that I have encountered, all of my classmates and colleagues, and all that I have gotten from them is what God has laid out. And I firmly believe that we all have a path. And I know that I have said before that God's got this great path, and we decide to go, no, and we just kind of veer off, and then we come back, and I think that's part of having this good life. And I think that if we share why this is our good life, how we've gotten here, I think that we will find in general that we have a lot in common with other people. What would you say to somebody who doesn't know what to do? Well, my life is kind of what do I do now? How do I find this good? What are you talking about? How do we tell people there is good and you can find it? I guess just sharing.
One of the answers I usually say to people if they ask me that question is when your insides match your outsides, then you're on the right path.
Let's get back to that as soon as we take a break.
Jessica, we need to leave right now.
I need to get something. Dance recitals are so boring.
There's a meaning no one knows. Wait until we set
So,
free.
what's the empty suitcase for?
The grand prize trophy.
Duh.
Confidence. Pass it on.
I was born to be somebody.
Welcome back. If you haven't heard the first part of our segments today, this afternoon, whatever time zone you're in, we've kind of been talking about the good life, how we got here, how we have a good life. And, excuse me, we were just talking about how knowing how we are in our good life and how our inside feelings match the outside. So I think you were talking about how that matches and how we kind of know when it's good.
Yeah. Well, for one thing, I think I've always said that the work that I do now, I am amazed that I get paid for it. Whereas when I was working in the business world, I went to work just to get the paycheck. It didn't match the inside and the outside. So that's one criteria I think we can talk about to people about what are they doing, how do they feel about it, if it's serving them well,
Right.
and part of that well has to be, is it serving any part of their psyche or their spirituality? Because when I was just getting a paycheck and having to show up 9 to 5, 5 days a week, it wasn't really happy. And I would wake up in the morning and say, oh, I have to go to work. And then I'd get out of work and I'd say, oh, free at last. Thank God, and I'm free at last. And that was part of the message that I was getting, which I didn't pay attention to for a long time. But I do think that if people can find something that they can do, that their skill set is matched by their enthusiasm, and they find a way to get paid for what they're good at. And I am in awe of people in the creative world who find ways to get paid for their creativity. And some people I know who are what I would call stuffy engineers who love what they do.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's a combination of what's on the inside, and if what's on the outside furthers what's on the inside and makes it better and more whole.
Right. It's the excuse me, the old adage, if you like what you do, going to work isn't a problem.
Right.
You know, if you're happy doing what you're doing. There's also a reality that those of us in the helping professions, we don't go into it to make the money.
Right.
We go into it to help people, to care for people, whether it's physically, emotionally, spiritually. And as pastors, we are caring for that whole person at all times. And, you know, whether that's in our own prayer life, praying for those who need it. And, you know, I would say we've got our email. You know, if someone needs prayer, let us know. Absolutely. Just knowing that you're being prayed for is another another way that we can help in this world. But yeah.
And I also have a distinction, I think, between being a therapist, a counselor, and being a pastor or a minister. And it's a very easy distinction to understand. As a therapist, most of the time, I don't self-disclose anything about myself, because when somebody's coming into my therapy office, it's about them.
Yes.
It's their time. And yet, as a minister, I am invited into people's homes. They know a lot about me. We share a lot of humanness about ourselves together. And that's a very distinct difference between the two ways of serving people, caring about people. I will tell you a little example. I had a client in my office years ago. She was in, emotional upset. She was troubled. And I sat there and I said, I got nothing. I don't know what to do to help. And at that moment, I just said, God, you got to do this one, because I got nothing left. And about 3 weeks later, she came in. She said, you remember that day when blah, blah, blah happened? And I said, yeah. She said, that was so important. That was the best session I've ever had. And I just sat there and laughed inside myself, saying, thank you, God, you took over when I had nothing left. And so there's some bleed through between ministry and therapy. But basically, I didn't tell her that God did it. I didn't, because she was thanking me. And I'm saying to myself, I didn't do that one.
That was not on me.
Not me.
That happens a lot.
It does.
And granted, we are in a position and a background where we know how we need to fill ourselves so that we can also serve others. And same, I could be just in my office or at the church and somebody comes in and just needs to chat. That mode gets switched right away. And it's an amazing thing. I know for me, because I'm newer at this, but just to have that change and to trust who's making that change, who's helping me, and making sure that I'm using all this education and training to be helpful, for someone. And I think we know that our world has changed, and I feel like I always go back to COVID, but COVID has been a defining moment for our world that we are in right now. And people are still struggling. And I don't want to dwell on it, but I see it. I see that. And helping people to find even the good in their own life. It might look different than it did. What are we at? 5 years ago. And that's okay. People don't like change.
Right.
But sometimes change is good. So I would encourage everyone who's watching, who's tuning in, to kind of take a look internally. What is good? What do I have good in my life right now? Who or what is leading me?
I have a favorite scripture line. It's very short, and I think a lot of people read past it. They don't pay attention to it. It's very short, but it was very helpful for me when I was thinking about becoming a minister. And that therapist who I was working with, he quoted it to me, and it's very simple. It says, do not fear, little flock, for it is the Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. And I sat in that office and I said, good pleasure to myself? You mean God gets pleasure out of giving us the kingdom? It had never dawned in me that God got pleasure out of anything. And I was starting to realize I had a very strange image of the God of the Old Testament. You know, the God who was jealous, the God who was angry, the God who was vengeful, blaming, punishing. And that just opened up a whole new dimension of my trying to understand the nature of God in my life.
Right.
So I think there are some answers in the good book if people are looking for what is the good life for them.
Right.
And there's another line I love, which happens to be in the Old Testament. It's at the end of the book of Micah,
Yes.
and it says, "But what does the Lord require of you? But to do justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with the Lord." And I thought that covers my entire life. Justice, mercy, and humility. And I found the hardest of those was being humble,
Yes.
because my ego gets in the way. And I think I have the right answer, and I think I know what I should be doing, and nobody can tell me differently until I stumble and I realize that I'm not doing very well.
Right. And that's what makes us human,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Mm-hmm.
And we have those choices. We can decide to
Yeah.
love mercy and
Mm-hmm.
justice and to be humble. And I think being humble is difficult for a lot of people.
My biggest problem is my character defects. I mean, I like some of them,
Sure.
and some of them I really don't want to give up.
Okay.
And
That's
and
okay.
they stand in my way. You know, they still do after all these years.
Yeah.
I've been working on them for a long time. But it's not unusual for me to revert back. You know, if there's a day when I'm grumpy,
Mm-hmm.
things aren't going the way I want them to, and I have to go back to that humility
Right.
and to believe that He has good pleasure in giving us the kingdom.
Absolutely. I mean, we know if we have a faith or we have been even to church a couple times, we know that God wants us to follow Him.
Mm-hmm.
It's simple.
Mm-hmm.
You would think that it was simple.
Mm-hmm.
Love your neighbor and love the Lord. Okay, it's only two things I have to do, right? Well, then, you know, we've got just all of this to consider.
Yeah.
I think today we have definitely touched on a few different topics, given others a path,
Mm-hmm.
an opening. I preached this Sunday that the Bible is the best-selling book of all time,
Mm-hmm.
and hopefully everybody has one. If not, hey, let us know.
Hopefully they read it.
Well, that's the other part. But I'd like to thank everybody for joining us today.
Mm-hmm.
We love doing these programs,
Yep.
and you can certainly look for more to happen.
And we'd love to hear from people.
I would love to hear from people.
Mhm.
Absolutely. So reach out to us, show ideas or topics that are interesting to you, and again, any prayers or
Mm-hmm.
need a reach out or something. So again, thank you so much, and we will see you next time.
Thanks.